Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Wherever you are in the world today, you're on the new way, where we take everything we thought we knew and weigh it again. Today I'm here with Bruce El Brujo, and we're just going to catch up on some things in the world that are orchestrated by the endeavor of Doc's journey home. Although, who knows what home is? Okay, Bruce, let me click the right button, and now we're back. It has been an adventure this past week.
Yeah, I bet it has too. Anytime you go cross country, it's always. I've driven cross country probably 35 times, so I'm an old hand at it, and every single time I've done it has been another unique experience. It's it's quite a country, really. It's a big continent, and it's quite a country.
The people on human scale all each individually think in a way that weighs their values as to what they believe, and sitting in bus stations with television screens blaring as they show Family Feud 6 times in a row because that's how the Matrix works. And by the time you sat there under a TV talking to somebody, because all the other seats are filled, and Steve Harvey has made so many bad jokes that you wish he could just pull out a gun and go bam, 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 bam. But that's violent, and we do not condone violence, even if it is against a screen figure put there to josh your stupidity. But in watching and being there and having somebody from Greyhound at the ticket counter saying, "No, we can't give you a ticket. You have to call the 800 number."
Why is
And
that?
I had to call the 800 number 4 different times because the key
Wow.
operating word is give you a ticket. Because the bus pulled into a station 3.5 hours late from its timing. And so they said it missed connections and didn't take the bus further on its route.
Well, you were only bound for Arkansas anyway, right? I mean, you're going to pick up a friend and drive from there in a car, correct?
And that's where I am now.
Yeah, cool. Well,
And
I've never taken a bus cross country or a train for that matter. I've taken a train, into the country, but I have not gone across. And
well,
I haven't been on a
before
bus in a long time.
before Homeland Security was a thing at airports, I would think nothing of sitting in an airport and watching people for a few hours, especially if I was picking somebody up. I'd get there early and watch the people.
Right.
So it wasn't really different in the in the Grey House bus stations that I had to wait in to catch a new bus 12 hours, no, 3 in the afternoon is when it was due in. It got in sometime around 5. And even though there was a 7 o'clock bus, they put me on a 2:40 bus. So
2:40 a.m.
yes.
Wow.
So I got to sit and watch my baggage and read a book and partake of the Memphis, Tennessee bus station for almost 12 hours.
Wow.
And that was coming off a trip that started at 10 p.m. the previous night.
In Asheville, North Carolina.
Yep.
It's too bad you couldn't have disembarked for a little while if you knew you were going to be, you know, delayed that long and just
And
have a little
I
walk around Memphis.
I would have if it wasn't for the 50 to 75 pounds of baggage that I had.
Yeah, you would have had to secure that somewhere.
And they don't have lockers in the bus stations like they used to have.
Oh, really?
And you're trusting an employee with your baggage to not rifle your stuff. No thanks. I'm
Yeah,
done.
I don't blame you.
I'll sit there and read a book and converse with several people. And because I was incognito as just another old dude riding a bus and not talking a lot, most people ignored me. Occasionally, people would come up and say something to me, and I'd get into conversations with chosen people sitting nearby because something happened that triggered conversation.
You should have wore your Santa outfit.
I am getting measured for that when I get to Magic's place in Oklahoma, where I'm leaving today, Saturday. I'm leaving tomorrow.
Okay.
So I'll get measured for the Santa outfit. I'll show you another outfit that I picked up when I was in Asheville that's going to be mailed to me when I get to California. I'm going to send it to you on the phone because I don't have the pictures on the computer,
That's fine.
but you can take a look at it and enjoy it. Um, Here we go. That should do. I wonder if I can pull it up on screen. Does it look like anything there? Anyway, you'll see.
I'm pulling it up right now. Oh, baby. Dang.
Yeah, I
You,
now
you look
have
very
my.
monkish.
Yes, I can be a hermit monk in that
Yeah.
suit. And I wouldn't dare wear it in a train station because it would attract way too much attention, similar
Oh,
to the Santa Claus outfit.
definitely.
But I have two outfits for playing characters, and of course, I can find a lab coat and play that character pretty well. And so I can see where character acting in LARPs is going to be a means of entertainment as people turn off their television. So I'm going to run the LARP at least for a little while. But what I want to do is get to developing education systems that are going to provide information that the characters in the LARP say follow up on, because people won't follow up on their own. But if we say something and then we make a video that goes into depth on what we're really talking about, I'm guessing that people who want to learn will be able to learn. And while we're weighing the different topics that we thought we knew, we can cross our information against each other's information with groups of half a dozen people so that we can look at different perspectives of the same thing to figure out what's right. I think every field of endeavor has all sorts of crap built into the mechanism, maybe 60% good and 40% crap. Maybe it's maybe it's 83% good and 17% crap. 5/6 good. The other part crap just blows things away. And we've talked about it before, things like built-in obsolescence, where nowadays the furniture you get from IKEA is good for maybe a year, maybe two,
Before
but
it falls apart.
yeah, but the pieces that we had when we grew up as children are probably still around somewhere. If
Mhm.
somebody didn't throw them away while modernizing or take them apart to scavenge the wood.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to know, you know, the, the truth in the truth. It's hard to know because we have been we have been methodically brainwashed, and so were our grandparents. Quite frankly, I mean, we've had several generations that have been completely brainwashed by the media.
I actually believe that the media industrial complex started right after World War II,
Yeah,
and that the generation of the greatest generation was the head case generation that created all this misery because they grew up during the Depression and it was what they had to get back to, was that sort of, it's all a bell-shaped curve. And so
well,
how
yeah,
it
and those
begins is
people,
how it ends.
the ones in charge and in control of the media were from that generation. But there's many others who are otherwise innocent. They're not you know aggressively trying to brainwash people. They may be
And that,
misinformed, of course, because the media misinforms everybody. You have to go to
well,
alternative media to get any truth at all.
and that's the thing that I'm looking at, is that you and I and people listening to us are good detectors of truth. It's like our bullshit meter is trying to discern how much bullshit it can handle before it totally freaks out. I'm
Yeah.
going to invite Harris into the discussion because I see that he's here by the fact that we have a little icon from him.
I see it
And
too.
so it'll take him a minute in his Discord and to do things like comb his hair and other things. But it's very, very interesting how we can't take the world at face value in any aspect of anything anymore.
No.
But on a personal scale, the people that we meet, we need to be genuine with and hope they're genuine with us, because it's that interplay of individual people working with people that's really going to become important as things bust up in the non local environment. But look at what physics decides is local and what is not local. And
Well, I mean, think
Einstein's
about us
cheap
right now. We're
reaction to a distance.
1,500 miles apart, Lenny, and we're having a face-to-face conversation. That's what's really sorely lacking in this culture now. Are face-to-face conversations. Everybody's walking around staring at their cell phone, and you know, and how often do you see, you know, two lovers on a date, and they're both sitting in a chair, not paying attention to each other, looking at their cell phone? It's crazy what's going on. It's crazy, and that is, emblematic of. I mean, if you're going to use one, you might use insane. That might even be a better adjective to describe what's going on in our culture right now.
So instead of trying to fight it and get sucked into the battles, we redefine what culture means to us, and we start living in the culture that we create within these LARPs that we're playing. And
Well, I would rather not be in a LARP. Okay, I would rather not be in a LARP
okay,
if I'm gonna embody the culture that I really would like to believe in. That's why I refuse to change my appearance or come from Andromeda or whatever. I mean, as I said to you earlier in an email. I mean, as Popeye said, I am what I am, and that's all that I am, and I'm not trying to fool anybody. I, I I'm a pretty reasonable. Um, I'm a very reasonable LARP, put it that way, for what I wish to profess in this
well,
culture. What's
the
left of
I
it.
yeah, the idea that every individual is an individual first and foremost, and their consciousness has to take care of themselves,
Mhm.
is just a basic thing about life. If you're not going to take care of yourself and get yourself into situations where you can't take care of yourself, then it's your fault, whatever you brought to. But the idea of watching what's going on and not being part of things that get too outlandish, but yet still living in your environment led to me getting dropped off a bus at a little before 6 o'clock on Thursday morning, and yesterday morning, Friday morning, at that same time, paddling a kayak across a lake to go watch the sunrise.
Oh, nice. I'm glad you got to do that.
Yeah, I'll send you a couple pictures so that you can share a little of that with me. I took a sequence of pictures and it worked out very well. Good afternoon, Harris. How are you
Good
doing?
afternoon. Good afternoon, Doc. Good afternoon. I'm doing great.
Howdy ho, Harris. Good to see you.
Yes. Good to see you too, Bruce and Doc.
Thank you.
It's nice to listen to your conversation.
It's good to be seen.
Yeah.
Howie, Howie, Freudian slip there. Lenny, I own a kayak. Haven't been out in it in a while. I have a kayak and a canoe, and I used to be waterborne quite a bit, but I don't have a car right now, so I can't even transport one of my my kayak or my canoe to the water and put it in the water and then park and then be able to take it out of the water later on and get it back to the house. Anyway, but I used to be a kayak instructor. I was a kayak instructor on a Lake Champlain, and I used to with an old friend of mine. We used to take all kinds of individuals, teenagers and grandmothers, out on Lake Champlain. Often they had no experience kayaking at all. And we would teach them how to kayak and then take them out on the lake and take them over across maybe to Fort Ticonderoga and, have a little history session on what happened in Fort Ticonderoga, et cetera, et cetera. It was a really fun time.
Well, getting in a kayak like that and being on a lake was the first time in almost 10 years, but all the instinct came right back.
Oh, sure.
And it was no problem for three of us to paddle out maybe a mile to an island and sit out on a beach with thermoses of coffee and a good joint and just snap sequential pictures of what was going on between swims and then paddling back to where we left the truck ready to go. But
Yeah,
I'm
I need to
here.
get a camera. I need a car and a camera.
Yeah, I'm now in Arkansas. I'm leaving for Oklahoma tomorrow to go see Magic. And from there, our next destination is northern New Mexico. And so if things work out, they will work out very well. I
Are you
see
going
that
to Santa Fe or are you going to Taos? Where are you going?
I'm going to a place up north. I'm not sure the name of it right now because I'm not the driver, and so I tend to
Both
not.
places are in northern New Mexico.
Yeah, it's a place out on the in the area that is not commonly known as city,
Right.
and so I'm not sure what I'm getting into, but it's just to see people along the route. And
Yeah.
as we were talking about before Harris joined us, after sitting in bus stations in a trip for at least 16 hours of the different trip. The the idea of wanting to go for a ride today was not in my game plan.
Yeah.
So we're leaving tomorrow, and hopefully, seeing how people work on human scale will lead us to become more effective groups in the field that we've coined sociochemistry,
Mhm.
which is taking the science of chemistry, applying the mathematics to sociology, and expecting groups of people to work like groups of atoms.
Well, I'd just be satisfied if groups of people work like groups of people. Yeah.
Touche.
Not enough human beings anymore. There's too many bots. They're just bots.
Well, the world for us to create in our own mind can leave those bots aside for the moment, develop some things that work, and push them forward.
Well, they
The
will only work on a certain scale, as you know. I mean, we're all limited by uh, the we're limited by the media that we are expressing ourselves in. Now, this is really you know, I'm really grateful for this, Lenny and Harris, that we have this. We have your StreamYard, uh, media uh, capabilities, and that if people do tune into us, they can see the real us. You know, we're not sitting here, staring into our cell phone. We're having an intelligent conversation, and that's become a rarity in these days.
A lot of people would tune this in and they'd find that they didn't speak our language and would tune us right out.
That's okay. That's
It's okay.
whatever. There's a,
Bruce,
there's a lot of ignorance in the world today.
if you allow me, just to add a small comment, what you said before that the medium limits us, let's say, or it defines how we act. That in my head, it went back to what you said before about the training others in kayak.
Yeah.
So in that case, the medium is the river. So it actually restrains the way we, let's say, we interact with others in that particular environment.
Sure.
So there is always a lot of things to learn, and everyone, even let's say a trainer, a coach, or a teacher, always keeps on learning. So, for example, if it was on a very windy day, I am sure that you will have faced different difficulties, right? Other than in a normal day. So that might actually give out some more experiences and even some room for further augmenting even your own capacity, let's say, to do kayak.
Well, I mean, and everything is an opportunity.
Mhm.
Everything is an opportunity. And, sometimes it's an adventure, but it's at least an opportunity for us to uh, communicate. Let's hope that we all have some desire to communicate honestly and consciously with one another. Enough said, really.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's one of those things where, as individuals operating on human scale in small groups, we can resonate at frequencies that can't be reached by those huge, large groups out there that think they wield all the influence and power. But what we're doing really is, from human scale, building a world more molded to the one we wish to be in than the one we currently find ourselves in. And people everywhere can do this, but creating the model of how to do this, you could see that there are no models out there that are good enough to tell us what's going on. So the model I've been using is called group theory. It comes out of chemistry, and it places atoms in space and then looks at them from several different standpoints and defines the symmetry of the setup. So you have mirror planes, and you have different angles, and you have rotations and rotations with inversions, and all that stuff involves things called point groups. So the point group information is given in a math table in a field called matrix algebra, and is something that's calculated in chemistry to define where the atoms are in space. And, well, if the math of chemistry and the math of sociology line up to each other, the fields in their relationship as hard and soft sciences make them parallel, and they should have the same mathematics. So I scribble in my notebooks all sorts of different things about first, second, third, fourth orders and Fibonacci and a bunch of stuff. But the fact is, nature works based on a different system of accumulation and counting than humans have built the current system to work on. And so we're getting to the point where it got so big it's imploding on itself, but there's no real place to go other than here.
Well, I think
And
we're redefining what human is at this point.
absolutely we are. And we need to bring in codes of contact from human scale up into groups, because right now all those big groups are top down and they're forcing their will on us, but we've got the power,
It's
not
so
them.
important for us to communicate individually as individuals amongst each other with other individuals, rather than looking for a group that we can preach to.
You've got it right, Bruce.
Yeah,
The idea is
these
that
kind of conversations are far more valuable than any guru, talking about what reality is.
and
I'm documenting
this by putting it on YouTube and accounting for how many people are watching and how many people are talking within the group, and seeing that this is how a group of two, Bruce and Lenny, and a group of two, Lenny and Harris, and a group of two, Bruce and Harris, expand to a group of three at a frequency that makes us more powerful as a threesome discussing from different perspectives than any one of our groups of two, because now we have that extra added perspective. And the idea of group theory is that getting the small information done correctly is way, way important in what turns out in bigger groups. Because if you embed something wrong early on in a process, it's harder to fix later on down the road. So I'd rather go slow and careful than going large and not having individual control, so that any one of the three of us can say anything we want, be heard, and talk to in polite context to get the meaning. Because our words don't necessarily agree in the form of how we communicate. It's been totally obfuscated by a system that insists on using the same word totally differently to the point where you can't use the meaning of the original word to imply that meaning. If you say chill out to somebody, it used to mean calm down, get your cool. Nowadays, you say chill out to somebody and they're likely to come at you with a knife. It just doesn't communicate well between different groups of people. We got to communicate on an individual basis, and to do that, we can reconstruct everything bigger.
Well, that's
Okay.
why, in my opinion, not not being a LARP is important. We need to be who we are, and I think the three of us right now are being who we are. We're not being a LARP. You know,
Life is the LARP.
what's that?
Life is the LARP, our LARP.
Life is a LARP. Yeah, well said, Harris. I like that. That's great. You know, and you're so right. You're so right. That's what's so important about face-to-face communication rather than walking around, like everybody and their dog staring at a cell phone. It's just.
If you allow me, gentlemen, I would like to try to make a link in everything that we discussed so far. So, and getting back to the kayak and the river and the groups, let's say the larger the group, the more difficult, let's say, the communication. And how I understand it from the perspective of the lurker, let's say, that's in the hive mind. When I am participating, let's say, in the conversation of a small channel that is live streaming, I can actually interact with the people in the chat, so I can slow down and interact with them. But if it's on a very big channel, let's say, then everything goes like super fast, like it's like the river of comments that is going all the way down. So that doesn't allow, let's say, the interaction or even the experience that a smaller group presents, let's say, and the opportunity that we all can see there. So also getting back to what Dr. Lenny said, it's important to take things slowly, and I think there is a good reason that there is that famous metaphor, let's say, that it's turtles all the way down. It's not like Sonic the Hedgehog. It's a turtle, so it's an animal that it goes very slow, and maybe it's not turtles all the way down. Maybe it's also tortoises all the way up. So that's something else. It depends on the perspective, let's say. But everything we're discussing regarding groups, regarding the importance of serious play, and to make the move between actually not just LARPing based on a bingo card. Let's say we take randomness and embed it into what we are saying. We are actually being authentic here. We're having honest conversations, and that's the most important bit, and that's why I participate, let's say, in this type of talks, and that's why I enjoy joining you, gentlemen.
But that and what you really are espousing, Harris, I think, if I may be so bold, is the fact that we give each other this to speak. And we don't talk over each other. In a large group, you got people talking over each other all the time. And sometimes, I mean, I don't know about you guys, I'm sure I have friends that talk over me all the time. And I don't really want them as friends because all they do is talk over me. I can't even get a word in edgewise. And so the ability to speak and make a point is really important. It's really important that let's hope that we're making sense when we're speaking. But the fact that we speak and we can make our point, and we're not talking over one another, and it's intelligible and hopefully intelligent,
Mhm.
that we can speak and be heard without being talked over, without there being some sort of a
Antagonism.
you meant a hive mind. I mean, the hive mind gets in the way of individual expression.
Yeah.
It's interesting how you use the term hive mind, because I think you've met Grizz once, but don't at all know the depth that Grizz has taken the hive mind connotation to a
Yeah.
different level.
Yeah.
So when you rail on the hive mind, we're both here chuckling because we know Grimm's use of the hive mind and your use of the hive mind are exactly the same meaning, but you'd come on the opposite sides of the approach to what the hive mind is and does.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very, very interesting. It's interesting how the interplay of what we believe depends on what we previously believed and the consistency of how the picture was presented. And I often have to take areas that I had a belief in and drop that belief in order to test it out without it to see if maybe that's the problem with the belief. So I constructed this device called the flux box. Even before the flux capacitor made its debut in Back to the Future, I had my flux box. And when the second law of thermodynamics got into the flux box, I was like, how do you not use the second law of thermodynamics to figure out the physics of things?
Mm-hmm.
But I was having problems with things that just could not obey conservation of mass and energy and needed to question that topic. And it turned out to be a semantic problem. Second law of thermodynamics holds for closed systems. If the system is not closed, it doesn't hold. I was trying to apply it to an open system, not a closed system. Hence, the second law is valid and I can use it, but not in an open system.
I always opt for closed systems, to be honest, when I do my testing in terms of theory. And I understand closed systems better, and I even believe that the whole universe is a closed system. It's a closed system that is expanding, but at every different, let's say, frame, if we allow the metaphor that time is like a movie, so if we pause it, then we will realize that what we get is like a rectangular prism at each point. And when we move forward, we will see that it gets bigger and bigger, it expands. So, but at all stages, it's a closed system. What you said before, Doc, about chaos theory and randomness, I know a few things about chaos theory. I've been dealing also in my professional capacity with a lot of chaos. It also has to do with a lot of technical jargon, let's say. But I cannot discard, of course, the power of randomness. Randomness is like it's a fact and of life, and in many cases, what even they call, let's say, entropy, which is the maximum information, it has to do with maximal randomness. So I do acknowledge that. Now, and going back to the hive mind metaphor, yes, as you said, of course, I know the usage that Grimm is making, and it's a correct one. My understanding is basically the same, even though my background history maybe it's a bit different. I am coming from something called transmedia storytelling, And that's how I came to understand what the hive mind is. And this metaphor of the chat being hive mind, it's very well suited to how this platform that we are actually in.
Well, I think we have a closed system here, essentially. I think that's one of the advantages that we are enjoying is that there's only three of us here, and there's a few people that are making comments, and if Lenny sees that you know, he can expand the group. But we really do have a closed group here, um, which is sensitive uh, to this moment, this really precious moment that we're in, that we are all expressing individually together. And as I said before, we acknowledge each other, uh, out of respect and regard for each other, to the point where we are letting each other speak, and we are waiting for a pause, and we are not talking over anyone. We are letting each one of us finish our thought, without interruption. And I think that's a really important uh, um, caveat, if you will. It's a really important part of communication. Uh, that well, I mean, conscious, productive communication. And I appreciate that with both of you guys. I appreciate that. Thank
It's a lovely etiquette. It's very
you.
good. Very good.
Yeah.
I've learned that on a personal basis, me can handle a group of 34, 35 people who know each other, and I can be a participant in the room having many different one on one groups or groups of three within that larger crowd so that I can feel comfortable in a small group within a bigger group. But it really, 13 boggles my mind sometimes trying to work on that scale. The Watershed Council group that had 18 members trying to get consensus was a group of 13 because in Fibonacci, the groups grow. But I'm trying to apply Fibonacci to growth of groups and look at how it works on a larger scale. But I realized that on a human scale, I kind of need to have say in everything that affects me, or else I don't want to play. But I can delegate that to one of you guys. If you say, yeah, I've done that and it worked okay for me, that's good enough for me to think I could get it to work for me too. But on bigger and bigger scales, as we deal with the world, human individuals get rolled upon no matter who they are. And that sort of power structure is not a power structure, it's a force structure. And power versus force is such an important book. I offhand right now don't remember the name of the author, but I've read it 3 times. I want to say Hopkins, and that's not right, but it's something like that. It'll come to me.
That's why though that um, uh, personal. I mean, I'd rather be in a large group of people on my feet, talking with people. I think that you can go from group to group or individual to individual when you're doing that, and there could be 300. I mean, I've been in it. I was at Watkins Glen, 600,000 kids. You know, listening to the band, the Allman Brothers and the Dead. I mean, 600,000, and we were all walking around, you know, interacting with one another. Nobody was staring at their cell phone, and we weren't required to be in a video conference of any kind. Which is the only way we can really reach out to thousands, let alone millions of other individuals is, as we're doing so now. But that's what makes personal interaction so important. And I don't know. I mean, I'm probably repeating myself here, but it's I think it's really important for us to eyeball each other, look each other in the eye, and communicate directly to each other. That's important. Even if you're in a group of 6 people, you can still look at each individual person and you can communicate directly with that individual. And the others can listen and then add as they see fit.
Yeah. I have something to add what you guys are saying regarding groups. In terms of, let's say, from the project management perspective, the optimal size of the group is something between 5 and 8. So especially if you want to do to achieve a task that it's a single purpose, let's say, what you have to do is you have to follow the so-called 5 stages of TACMAN in group formation, and where the first stage is known as forming, the second one is storming, the next one is norming, then the fourth one, the penultimate one, is performing, which is the stage where actually the group manages to perform, and the final stage is adjourning. So where everybody says goodbye and after they have achieved the purpose, let's say. So in large organizations or even in ad hoc situations, you get these formations of groups, and it's when it's egoless groups, when there is no leader, let's say, you can see very nice group dynamics forming. And that first stage of called the forming is actually the most important one, because if most groups, they do not manage to pass over that stage, they get into a lot of conflicts, a lot of things, as Bruce said, everyone is talking on top of each other. So there is a lot of dominance, let's say, going on there. And the best groups, they actually are the ones that they manage to proceed and reach move beyond, let's say, the bad levels of conflict into the optimal levels of little conflict, let's say, that will actually help them operate and achieve the task at hand.
Well, hopefully we keep the conflict to a minimum.
Yeah. But you see, once more, it's like this 5 to 8. It also has to do with Dr. Lenny says about the Fibonacci. Yeah.
It does. And then there's another level, comes about 21 to 34, that is a step above that. And then a level where 55 and 89 start at. And so by the time you're working at that 55 to 89 level, that I'm calling a 4th order group, because it's 1, 2, 3, 4 steps away. And the idea is to get to an 8th level group, because that's the whole human population before you get to a 9th level group, by the definitions as defined for the game that we're playing. And so I'm at this point a scorekeeper in addition to a participant. But instead of developing quantitative measures of scoring, I want to develop qualitative measures of scoring. And I want those qualitative measures to be good for individual people, not to walk over individual people for the good of the group.
Well, I think that really describes quality, doesn't it? I mean, it ascribes to quality.
But it's hard to measure quality, because quality is different things to different people. And I can find quality in something extremely cheap because I see what its value is to me. On the other hand, nothing bothers me more than going out and getting something that might cost a couple $100, get it home and find out it doesn't work.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. Poor quality or planned
Yeah.
obsolescence. Then
Yeah.
it's not going to last that long.
I have something to add there in terms of quality. Here's one example. Let's say, I don't know if you like Japanese food or sushi and all of that, but let's suppose for the sake of argument, we go out to have sushi and maki and all of that. In order to enhance our experience, we are gonna use something very cheap that is ginger between each different, let's say, sushi roll. And the reason we are doing that is because we want to utilize it as a palate cleanser in order to enjoy the next, let's say, sushi or maki that comes on. So it's not necessarily something expensive or something super wow. Maybe it's something very small that it will enhance this quality of our experience. And if you take it a step further and realize that there are some metrics like the quality of life, for example, which is, we can discuss about that, but I'm just bringing it up in order to make a parallel, let's say, with the quality of a stream. So maybe there is something there to also consider and even and discuss.
Well, I think that the Japanese use sake as a palate cleanser as well.
Yes,
You know,
yes,
yeah,
yes, which is nice.
That's one of the reasons why people drink, small quantities of sake. Not to get hammered or anything, but it's just part of the meal, and it cleanses the palate, for the next course. And like
It
you, I
enhances
really
the
enjoy
experience.
sake. I really enjoy sake. It's wonderful stuff.
And now you gentlemen have made it so that the people I'm with, probably when we go out to dinner tonight, will suggest sushi and sake
Yeah.
place to go to.
That's good.
Not that they're here listening, neither one of them are here at all. But the way the universe now works, we're open to the power of suggestion over an extended people number of basis. So there's something going on. And I think I ascribe it to the idea that nature has more choice than humans, and that humans want to fit nature into human scale when human scale is very, very much just a small piece of nature scale.
Well, it all
Yeah.
depends on the human, right?
What Dali is saying there, it's also good. Taking small breaks, let's say, in order to appreciate and enhance the overall experience of the lunch or the dinner. It's also something that it does not even carry any calories, so it's even free. That's great.
The idea of each of us having our own perspective and being able to talk in small groups is going to lead to the ability to go to larger groups with the values we form from small groups when it becomes the need to get to those larger groups. And as long as I have a way of being able to hand my say in an area to somebody I believe knows what's talking about, sort of like a proxy where I can say, yeah, for this area of concern, I'm going to agree with Harris. Harris now represents two people, and I don't have to pay attention to that area because I have trusted my welfare to Harris to look into it. And then by the same token, he can pass off something he's interested in to somebody who knows better what's going on in that area. until gradually we can get all these experts into a room to discuss things, because somebody's got to be wrong for somebody else to be right.
Maybe there are some cases that everybody agrees. That's my dream. That we can find some situation where everybody in the room agrees. So
That's the best outcome. And what I've found is that as you grow bigger, you can have an outcome where one person in the room doesn't agree, but everyone else does, and that person just gets overrode. But you got to give them their say first before you override them. And if there's a second person in the room who will agree with something they have to say, then we need to talk about it before we steamroll in that decision.
yeah.
It's good to give people their say, and hopefully we are all collaborating with other intelligent minds that believe in the power of communication and believe in the power of intelligence and consciousness, because it can go a lot of different ways, can't it? It can go a lot of different ways, and the bigger the group, the more crazy it can get, quite frankly, because so many people are brainwashed now. So many people are brainwashed. They have been, manipulated from childhood, and they've never done the research necessary in order to lift themselves out of that propaganda. And we're dealing with scads of people that have been propagandized, and they don't know.
They don't know. They don't
Huh?
know. They
No,
don't know.
Yeah,
They don't
you're right.
know.
And so we need to give them a little room. You can't just say, "Oh, you're an idiot." I mean, that doesn't solve anything. We need to give everybody some room. But let's face it, there are a lot of idiots out there, and after a while, you don't want them to speak anymore. You get sick and tired of listening to the bullshit.
Which is why the small groups where we can respectfully talk to each other
Right.
makes sense to be where we do our work in developing the new way, where we take everything that we thought we knew, weigh it again, and let's get some of the embedded false out of the way before we actually transfer into a system built on the old system that is bound to fail because the old system was a failure. But
Really,
we're not
and
replacing
it's
anything
fail
in that
all
old
around.
system. We're just finding alternatives that would be possible so that when we lose the system, we're not stuck with the old way of doing it.
Well, we definitely have to forge ahead. There's no question about it.
To power
We
through.
do.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm noticing we're coming up on the hour. And so I'd like to thank the entire audience for hanging with us. Between the three of us and the audience out there, I think we've totaled 9 people, which in my world makes us a group of 8, which is just the perfect size for discussing things in a way at human scale where every human gets to have their say. So I'm going to let each of you gentlemen sign off, and then I'm going to give a sign off, and then we'll see where we go next. Bruce?
Well, I think that's lovely, Lenny. I don't really feel a need to add to that. Well said, and I continue to appreciate the opportunity to contribute with you three and with others that routinely sometimes show up. So kudos to the StreamYard there, Dr. Lenny. It's good to see you both. Good to see you, Harris. And I am now leaving the studio.
Harris, have you got anything to say in closing?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, Dr. Lenny, for providing this platform to us all. It's always a pleasure to be here. And the only thing I want to add is a small suggestion to people to read more, to read books, to read comics or whatever they want. So that's all. Thank you, Doctor. Bye, everyone.
Take care, Harris. And I'd like to thank everybody here in the audience. It was good to see you again, Karen, or hear from you. Dolly, very much appreciate your comments. Neutrino, excellent to see you. And the way we're going to solve this is each of us being individuals on human scale. And when we have a problem, figuring out a route that addresses that problem, not only for us, but works for every other human we have to deal with, so that everybody is going to get the benefit of the work we do, not just some corporation who is milking us for the loosh of the society. So, everybody take care. This has been Dr. Lenny Time, and we'll talk to you again soon.